I hope that you will forgive me if I'm not that funny this evening. I am a stand-up comedian. I am also an attorney, and I am a writer. When I told my wife that I was going to tell you guys that I'm not going to be that funny this evening, she said, "Why start now?" So, but I figured, how often do you have an audience like this? And so, I'd like to talk a little bit about my family. My family has lived in Reno, Nevada since 1984. And the state of Nevada has given us so much. And just a few years back, it gave me even more in the form of an insight into my family history when I participated in the Renown Health, DRI, Northern Nevada Health Study. Participants in this study received ancestry results through 23andMe. My ancestry results, unsurprisingly, showed that I was primarily Western African, Nigerian to be exact. My second largest ancestry group was British and Irish. So European, yes. When I was recounting these results to my mother, she stated that that made sense, and she said that this was because we had had a relative who had been enslaved and who had had a baby by the master. This relative was enslaved by an Irish family. My mother's unfailing politeness compelled her to use the phrase, "had a baby by the master," in order to describe our relative's rape and her eventual forced birth. And though this was the first time that I had learned this information, my mother made the statement with a nonchalance that indicated her long knowledge and acceptance of the fact. This information allowed me for the first time to view my previously nebulous enslaved ancestors in the form of a real individual person. It also made me wonder how people like her and she herself became pregnant. And the answer lie in another dark chapter of our nation's history. During American slavery, the bodies of Black women became the stock and trade of slave masters. They placed advertisements for the most fertile women. Black men were lent out as studs in order to impregnate these women. Teenage boys and girls were locked together in pens in order to mate, in order to ensure the stock of the plantation. Today's opposition to abortion rights, so often couched in terms of dignity for women, protection of children, and the creation of a culture of life, serves to obscure what is the American tradition of exertion of control over the bodies of women and punishment for those who will not submit. And though this legacy has never been theirs exclusively to bear, Black women have borne the brunt because of the legacy of slavery. This history is so indelible that to this day, Black women and children are the Americans most likely to die due to complications during childbirth. It is no mystery how today's record low abortion rates have been achieved. They have been achieved through policies which give women control over when and whether they become pregnant, and which give families who have children support. And Madam First Lady and Mr. Governor, I thank you for your support of those policies. However, women in other states are not quite so lucky. Legislators in Virginia at one time proposed a mandatory and medically unnecessary transvaginal ultrasound for any woman who sought an abortion. In Louisiana, legislators have recently proposed legislation that could ban the most effective forms of contraception and result in incarceration for women who get abortions. And in the state of Texas, women will be hunted as bounty under a state law which legal experts have stated the closest analog is the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. State-sanctioned rape, forced birth, deprivation of physical liberty, and bounty. These are the tools of the slave master, now applied to all women. These policies have one purpose: harassment, intimidation, and ultimately punishment for women who dare to assert themselves. Reasonable minds may disagree on what is the central question of the abortion debate in this country: when life constitutes a person to whom society is willing to extend legal rights. After all, the answer to this will differ based on the religious tradition, the cultural tradition, the time and place, and the personal circumstances of the person being asked. But what we know for certain is that women and girls in American society are human beings vested with legal rights. There is a phrase that is popular among Black Americans online. It states simply, "I am my ancestors' wildest dream." I often wonder what my ancestor would say if she could see me today. I imagine that she would marvel at my existence. Whereas she lived life as a prisoner, due only to the color of her skin, I am an upwardly mobile professional. While she was likely counted as 3/5 of a person legally, I am fully invested with political franchise. While she had little to no choice in the composition of her family, I am married to a woman whose own family history includes slave ownership, but who is now the fiercely loving mother of 2 children who, due to their African lineage, may have at one time been enslaved themselves. I am living a life that is as close to full equality as men have ever achieved in this country. And while I cannot speak for her, were she here today, and if she could see me, she might wonder what any of that matters if 157 years after the end of slavery, while ostensibly a free woman, she could still be required to bear the child of her rapist. It would be reasonable for her to wonder how, with so much progress for her male descendant, she has not appeared to move an inch. I do not believe that the issue of abortion rights is solely a women's issue. However, I do believe that the voices of women should take precedence in the conversation, and that certainly includes women who disagree with me. So this begs the question, why should I speak about this? Why should I speak about this when so many better positioned, more qualified people with better expertise on the issue have already done so? During the racial justice protests of 2020, I was shell-shocked at the things that were being said about people like me. I watched in my hometown of Reno, Nevada, as armed protesters showed up to a peaceful vigil for George Floyd, and a motorcyclist affixed a sign to their motorcycle that stated merely, "Black lives do not matter." When I was at my lowest point, my father pointed out to me that unlike the nearly monochromatic racial justice protests of his youth, there was a virtual rainbow of faces in the streets with us this time. When I saw white teenagers stand on a corner in rural Nevada and proclaim that my life mattered, I was heartened to see that I was not alone. Because when you are in the fight of your life, alone is the scariest thing you can be. And make no mistake, many women are fighting for their lives right now, and we must not let them stand alone. This nation is not irredeemable. We can be what we constantly tell other people we are. We can be the last best hope for the planet Earth, a shining city on a hill. And Madam First Lady and Mr. Governor, through your support of these policies, you are helping us to achieve that. But we cannot be that until the statement that all lives matter is not a mere platitude used to shout down people proclaiming that Black ones do, but a national creed broad enough in scope to encompass the idea that the lives of women matter as well. Madam First Lady, Mr. Governor, all in attendance, I thank you for your time.